Ready?
I pressed the button to go live. We're preparing. Hey, we're live on Facebook right now. Welcome to my guest, Larry Davidson.
Hello.
On my CoCreativeSex Dialogues. We're having a great conversation today that is your unusual topic, but perfect to dive into the whole concept of body shame. So we're going to look at what it's like to be dating with a colostomy bag. And Larry's going to tell us his colorful and challenging and courageous journey with dealing with that. So I just want to make sure, Larry, that you have a little moment you can look and see if you got it tagged on your Facebook Live.
I don't know. It says post added to timeline, so I haven't been present. I'm fooling around with this Facebook thing, but I believe I'm live. I believe
Okay,
it's
perfect.
on my timeline.
That means
but
it's
I don't know. I'm just going to do the interview and
okay. Sounds good.
All right. So
okay.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me, Julie.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited to talk to you. You came highly recommended from Destin Garrick, who I know that you've been doing some interesting work with. So let's just give you a little bit of context to the public to sort of get a sense of who you are. So you've been doing all kinds of different things. You've had a very colorful, biography, but you came to studying with Destin and the evolved masculine and the whole concept around like master your own sexuality, and worked with many Jaya as well, I think, and different Sachin Raja. And these are very important people that have shaped you in different ways. What was the drive that brought you to want to do all this work around sexuality?
It was a sexless marriage that brought me to here. And that's when I met Destin. So I was trying to figure out what to do to stay in my marriage or to take care of my sexual needs. And I'm officially at this point not in that marriage anymore, but it lasted a while, even while it was still sexless. We had children that are grown now, and it was a dragged out process, but basically trying to figure out in that relationship how much of it was my responsibility, how much blame. I didn't want to blame anyone other than take responsibility for myself. Mm-hmm. And I'll actually, there was also a Sachin workshop involved in that, which I'd actually like to get to later. You know, like a huge breakthrough for me was in a Warrior's Age workshop.
Cool.
Okay. And I learned about tantra through that, but let's save that for later.
Right. Well, it's really a big topic because I think a lot of people, complain about having sexless relationships or sexless marriages. So you sort of had this experience and you're like, I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to see what part is my responsibility. And you really start digging into this. And so maybe we can go into like, what did you discover? What skills did you learn?
Well, okay, so I'll do the Warrior's Age story because it's a good start. And was before Destin. I was listening to a podcast, I think, and they were talking about this workshop called Sex, Passion, and Enlightenment, and I didn't realize it was Tantra. It was a 3-day workshop, and I was in this marriage, and I was unhappy, and I remember doing an eye gazing exercise with a woman that I hadn't met, and we were supposed to repeat something to each other. I forgot what I was supposed to repeat to the woman, something like "you are worshipped" or "I adore you" or something like that. And for the man, I was supposed to hear the words "I trust you" from the woman. And I remember hearing that, like doing the eye gazing, hearing the words "I trust you" from the woman, and then falling on the floor in tears in a ball, like crying my eyes out for like 10 minutes. And it was a huge breakthrough because I had to think, why was that so powerful to hear from a woman, and then to examine my own, like, am I trustworthy as a man? And
those words, I trust you, like that's huge. So what was behind that?
I'm still trying to be trustworthy, and I think I'm doing better than I was before, and I think it's like a constant check. How trustworthy am I? Because like one of the things that I learned from Destin and all my own exploration is to be trustworthy in a relationship, the woman needs that safety, and she needs not just like physically safe, but emotionally safe, and not only emotionally safe, but safe to express what she's thinking, safe to express her emotions, and she can't be taking care of the man. So she has to
Right.
trust him to hold that space.
Right. So, like for you, when you heard the word "I trust you," was it because most of your life you got the message "I can't trust you"?
I
Is that
can't trust myself. I'm not trustworthy. I'm an imposter. I am, I have to say what people want to hear instead of what's true. You know,
right?
get
Like,
people.
where do you feel like that came from when you go deeper into that? What did you discover?
Well, I discovered there's family, social programming, trauma, childhood stuff, a lot of media, a lot of what stories of how we are supposed to be, how what a man is supposed to be. Um,
Wow. I
yeah.
find it so amazing how just three words, "I trust you," could like be this like door key to open up such, it carries so much. Words carry so much, and there's so much connected to all our feelings, and it just like, yeah, it just really opened something up for you, right?
It did, and that was probably about 12 years ago. So it's it's been a lot of exploring in the last 12 years, and also checking all the time. Am I trust? Do I trust myself? Like what am I? What am? How am I not showing up as a trustworthy person?
Right, right.
And then
Like,
what
do you
are?
feel like you've done anything where people can't trust you? Like, did you prove to yourself that you were not trustworthy, or was it like a lack of self-esteem?
I think it was a lack of self-esteem. It was also like being judged. I being judged, and many times unfairly by other people, where there would be a projection on me. There's still projections on me. I mean, we're being projected on all the time, even in political things. That somebody I might say something on Facebook, and all of a sudden, I'm the subject of some sort of projection where it's not true. But you can't like prove once somebody judges you, you
Yeah.
can't like prove yourself out of it. You have to, like you can't, once you start defending yourself or explaining it, it's already done.
Right. So there's like a lot of damage when people judge, but it's like finding your power in that trustworthiness and that self-esteem where you're like, you show up in a way that inspires trustworthiness.
Yes, and I think shame has a lot to do with that. I think that a lot of when we're driven by shame, it makes us behave in certain ways. It's like we're behaving in a way to try to quiet our shame, which I think is the topic of your podcast. Is
Exactly. So can
and
you give me like an example of that? Like, where you've seen that, where someone might be driven by their shame and act in ways then that, you know, might not be trustworthy, or something that would help us see like what you're talking about.
I'm gonna have to wait. I'm gonna have to hear the question again. Like give you an example of of where I feel shame.
Well, it could be you or something that illustrates like where you feel like someone's shame like has been the driving force that brings them to not doing something that's not trustworthy.
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of sexual shame in terms of if I'm in an interaction with a woman and there's desire there or attraction, and at what point am I allowed to say that, and at what point I'm now become creepy, or
Right.
at what point is there some hidden agenda, or do I say it right out, and all this all the head stuff that goes on if a man is in a relationship. What if it's a friendship, or what if it's a work relationship? What if it's inappropriate? Where is it not? Where is there no shame in being in expressing what we actually desire, or even if it's a fantasy, and
Right.
and be able to say that without receiving shame from another person.
Mhm. So if we look at those different workshops you did, there's like Destin's work, there's Jaya's work, and then there's Sachin Raja's work, Warrior Sage. So in each one of those, like what were like, so some people out there don't know what that work is. So what does that involve?
Well, I think for me, the warrior sage, where the Satyan's work is about spirituality, about polarity, about the different parts of ourselves, and dealing with polarity. That's an important part, which I can give you some examples of that. The Jaya's work is about the erotic blueprints and about sexual shame and claiming, claiming ourselves as sexual beings. The Destin work is about, it's called the evolved masculine. And I think that I've gone through a lot over my life to be able to say that I've learned lessons that I can teach other men about. And I mean, I think eventually we'll talk about my near-death experience that I had in June, and what I learned from that, which was more than any workshops could teach
Yeah.
me. That's dying.
Right.
I learned a lot from dying.
Wow. Yes. Yes. We're going to get there in a moment. Could you, for each of those workshops, just tell us one thing that you learned about yourself in those? Because it's been a bit of a journey of discovery, right? Because you're going from the sexless marriage, you're trying to figure out yourself, you're trying to get to this empowered place around sexuality. You want to know what you want to take responsibility for. So in each of these places that played this important role, like what did you learn about yourself?
That's a good question. I would say from Satyan, I learned how to have a spiritual practice, how to to, without being, having to go to a church, but like being open to the idea of a spiritual practice that's my own, and dropping into sort of what he called enlightenment intensives, where I would have experiences where I couldn't put into words, that are kind of I would embody a learning, and then in a way that was beyond what I could verbalize.
Like almost like a bit of an awakening.
Yes, like they were little, they were bits of,
like almost like you have more presence and more awareness of what's going on with these different steps and
yes. And one of the things he told me that I still remember, he said enlightenment is the ability to have two opposites at the same time and like see them both as existing simultaneously.
Wow.
So like if you can have two opposing, like you could be broke, you don't have to take a side, masks, anti-masks, like can you see both sides at the same time? Can you accept both sides at the same time and somehow not be in conflict?
Right. Like I think with the possibility of holding these two completely divergent ideas together.
Right. Can I love the person that
takes mastery.
Yeah, can I love the person that broke up with me and betrayed me and abandoned me? And can I hate her at the same time? Can I have both of those things at the same time?
And like both of those intensities.
And what's in the middle of it? Like, how do you just, what happens when you put those polarities together?
Right.
What exists in that?
What I'm hearing is like almost like allowing for the shadow, allowing for like the thing that might be like look good in society, putting them together, and there's like this polarity between those two things, and then there's a kernel that comes out of that.
Right. Or can I be a good guy and a nice guy, but can I also be, the masculine who wants and desires and craves and takes, and can I be both of those things?
Right.
At the same time.
Like holding that tension.
Yes. So like these ideas. Also, I think another thing that I thought was important that I learned from him is basically there are so many, we can't change the world. There are so many battles to fight. Like right now, there are so many injustices, so many battles to fight. So we can change the world by changing ourselves. Like how do we deal with it? How do we show up as an individual and make an impact that ripples outwards by working on ourselves? Like what if the spiritual practice of changing the world is by starting by doing the work we want ourselves? That was another takeaway.
Okay, beautiful. So let's jump to Jaya's Erotic Blueprint. What did you discover about yourself there?
Well, I found Jaya's blueprint when I was in a relationship that was, it turns out, was a mismatch, and I didn't know why. And I listened to Jaya's, I listened to Jaya, I think she was actually interviewed by Destin on the podcast. And she talked about this thing called the Erotic Blueprints. And I said, okay, I'm something that's called an energetic, because I started to do this spiritual work with Satyan and the tantra work, and I realized I really enjoy, like I really can get a lot of kind of energy from eye gazing, from feeling people, in fact too much, which will make me shut down sometimes. So I discovered there is a thing as an energetic, like this tantra stuff is real. Like I can have these these experiences, these sexual experiences without any sexual contact. But I was in a partnership where she was what's called a sexual, and that, like, all that eye gazing was kind of, she didn't get it. She wasn't into it. I brought her to tantra classes, and it was like she didn't really get it. And I thought, well, am I not, like, why doesn't she get this? And why is she not feeling these same experiences? And then Jaya said, well, there's 5 different blueprints, and maybe and I said, okay, so that I'm an energetic and she's a sexual, and it was a mismatch. And for me,
What would a
just,
sexual be?
well, the sexual is like, in most cases it's the opposite. The man is the sexual and the woman is more energetic, although that's general.
Right.
But that, Jaya said, is the biggest mismatch in couples. In a sexual is kind of like, especially because men are programmed to be sexual, and that's kind of like just concentrating on the sexual act and the orgasm.
Right.
You don't have the climax, then in, you know, the nudity and the, you know, just getting to the act, and all the rest of the foreplay and all of that, the talking and the connecting is not part of the act. The act is the sex, is the,
Right. Oh,
yeah.
interesting. Just like kind of a pragmatic experience of sex, like just having sex.
Yes. And so a lot of, I mean, Jaya discovered this after years of being you know, working with couples, and she would realize that the woman wasn't fed by that. For example, I'm just saying women because it could be the opposite. Like in my case, the woman needed some sort of like a connection and feeling, you know, feeling the contact and the energy before the act. And then if after years of that, they wouldn't be satisfied. And you know what? I still, in my marriage, because I think I became energetic, I still haven't analyzed what was the miscommunication in my marriage. Like I still don't know what my ex's blueprint is, because I don't think I knew I had the language or the ability to experiment. And I was at that point in the marriage asexual, because that's what I thought you're supposed to do. And I wasn't satisfied because I didn't have the full range.
Right.
So there's the energetic, and then there's the sensual. And the last woman I was with was very, very sensual. And that means if the, you know, the fabrics, the right kind of fabrics on the bed, there's incense, there's music, there's, you know, smells, everything, you know, we
All the
created.
senses.
Yeah. And I remember, for example, going to a party with her, and we bought her, it was like a dress up party, and we had this new dress. It was called the Edwardian ball, and you're supposed to dress up like I guess the 1800s. So we got this dress, and it's like all these people are dressed up, and I'm thinking, wow, this is a magnificent event. And she was not dropped in at all. Like she wasn't like paying, she didn't even see what was happening. And I realized, because the dress was like caught on something and was like rubbing against the floor and like didn't feel right on her skin, that's all she could concentrate on. And then finally we got like a pin and pinned it up, and all of a sudden it felt right, and and then she like said, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah, that's a great example, actually. I totally relate to that. Like in the sense of like, if I'm wearing like synthetic clothes and I'm not, my skin doesn't feel like it's breathing properly and it itches, I'm like, it's like it totally obscures my experience. So
which is also what's the shadow side of the, they all have shadow sides. So for the sensual, the shadow side is, well, the dishes aren't done, and well, we can do them tomorrow, but in the mind of the sensual, they're thinking about the dishes, they're thinking about all the things that aren't in place, and
open and clean, and just everything has to feel like perfect, right? That's great.
Yeah, and the shadow side of the energetic is sort of, because there's an energy thing, sometimes we can feel crowded, or you know, just energetically things are off, and
Yeah.
the connection isn't there, and then we start to go into our heads, and we start to disconnect, and we start to get overwhelmed, and then there's buzzings or lights, and you know, stuff that could make us retreat where we're in a shell.
Right.
So
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
and also like closeness, like I need my space right now, and these parties too much, these people are too much.
Right. There's a sense of overwhelm that can happen really fast.
So and the sexual, the shadow is that they're just so focused on that often they're not able to see the range, the full range.
Right. Cool. Okay, so that gives us a good color of like what was going on and what you learned from Jaya. How about
Well,
for
there's two more blueprints. I'll just do it quickly. There's the kinky.
Go for it. Go for
The
it.
kinky has to do with taboo, and it
Yeah,
doesn't necessarily have to do with spankings and all that. It's just things that are taboo.
things that
And
are a turn on.
yeah, turn-ons, it might be being watched, whatever, things that they have a little bit of an edge to it. That's
Yeah,
the kinky. And the shadow side to that is shame, actually. So there could be a lot of shame in owning that part of the sexuality. And the last one is called shapeshifters, and they need it all.
right,
So they always feel that they're too much. So in any kind of relationship, they feel like they're too much.
right.
So,
Cool.
so that, yeah, that's Jaya.
Really
And
helpful.
I do teach that. And you asked me about Destin, right? I'm coaching for him right now, and I think it's just in terms of deprogramming the ideas of what it means to be a masculine man, and that, like the kind of the stereotype ideas of what it means to be a man, and also just understanding, especially the concepts of safety for a woman. The concepts of being not trying to on whatever emotions might be happening, and men have emotions too, like to not to be vulnerable is to be strong,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
also to be able to hold someone's emotions.
yeah.
And, so,
So, so what are the kind of things that you had to deprogram about what it meant to be a man?
well, first of all, I wasn't really I kept a lot to myself. Like, this is a new thing for me to be doing interviews and talking about sexuality and talking about sexless marriage. These are things that I didn't talk to even my friends about it. I don't have like best friends. If I was with them, we would be talking about movies. Since I'm
Right,
not a sports guy, it wouldn't be about sports, but it would be about movies or TV shows, but it wouldn't be about what's going on in your marriage kind of thing. And I
right,
suppose there's men that do that, but I'm also of another generation too. So I'm a particular, um, it might be different if I were younger, but
right,
I've had, friendship for years with men, and they don't know what's going on with me.
right. Yeah, my mind, I'm such a connective person at the sort of like soul level of what people are going on, what's going on for me, that's friendship. So I'm like, how could that even feel when you're with someone that's like, you don't even talk about the real experiences? But I guess, yeah, it's sort of, it just happens, right? It's a very intellectual kind of connection.
Yeah, like I can think of a friend, he broke up with his girlfriend, and I'd be like, "Come on, bro, let's have a drink," kind of thing,
Right,
or like, "Let's talk about it, but not too much because I can't handle this." So it'll be all right, or she's a bitch, or whatever. Like just to not deal with his emotions and then my own emotional response to that, and to
right,
try to be like, buck it up, and there's all these fish in the sea, and just like not being real about like, well, what see, at this point in my life, I would say, well, like, what's really going on with you? How does that
yeah,
feel? What does it feel like to be you in this moment?
yeah,
um what are your frustrations? But I didn't understand that language before.
right. Almost like brushing it over and just be like, hey, let's go distract ourselves kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Cool.
And then I would do that to myself as a man.
Too.
But
Yeah.
then and then being like that in a relationship is not really appealing because I'm hiding something.
Hmm.
You know,
Right.
I'm hiding.
So you went from that sexless marriage to like taking all these questions. How did that start altering your dating life and what did you discover when you started going down this kind of path?
I've never really been dating. This is my first time dating, so I'm available if anyone's listening. But yeah, I went from a 6-year relationship to a 3-year relationship. And while I was still married, but we weren't really. We had filed for divorce, and we were living together, and we were raising our children,
Mhm.
and everyone was aware of all of this. Um, so I was in relationships. I was never really like, for me, going on these apps. I don't really know how to do it. And like,
Yeah.
I've been going on dates, and I don't really know how to do it. I
Yeah.
don't know. And we'll talk about that. Like, how much do I say? What, like, I don't know how to play the game. So
Right.
I'm kind of suck at it, to be honest.
So tell us, at what point did you have your accident?
Okay, so I was involved after I had started this path. It was I started to become a coach, and I met a woman that I felt I definitely was in love with her. I have her name tattooed on my leg. I made a website, like we built a business together. We did training together, and we were relationship coaches. Like I was taking all of the things that I learned. She was coming from also a sexless marriage, and then I became like opened up this whole world of I don't want this to sound braggy or anything because it's not really. It's just like, we both were allowed to experiment in this realm of discovering our sexuality, like the blueprints. I was able to bring everything that I knew into this relationship for us to explore and really open up um, the possibilities that could happen in a relationship. And so I built a website, which is still kind of there, and we did podcasts together, and I did a sexological bodyworks training with her, and we were going to, because I felt it's because I do hands-on sexual healing work, that it was safer to be in a partnership with a woman. Um, so this is like really charged and emotional. I wasn't sure if I was going to go here down this road, but I'm already here. Um, so we were visiting Mexico together. I was with her mom, and I ate something, and I got really sick, and it happened overnight, where I started to feel dizzy. And now that COVID is happening, like everybody could see the possibility of this happening to them. But for me, it was like I was healthy. We were in Puerto Vallarta. We were seeing shows in the jungle. It was like this paradise, and everything was beautiful. And we're together, and her mom's there. And then we went to go to her mom's house in a little like town in a rural area of Mexico. And I started to feel sick, and it just got, and I was actually coaching for Destin at the time, and I like called him up and said, listen, I can't do the call tonight, I'm feeling sick. I had no idea how sick I was. And as the time went on, I ended up in a clinic with no electricity, literally, like the lights would go on and off, and they didn't know what was wrong with me. And I was getting blood transfusions where my girlfriend and her mom would, the clinic and the blood bank were at two different, like a mile away. So she would come back to where I was in bed with tubes coming out of me, with with a bag of fresh blood with someone's name on it. It was like, it would say Emilio's blood. And each bag was like $600 cash. So this was just to keep me alive. But what happened is my intestines had opened up, and I got sepsis. So I was basically poisoning. All of my insides were starting to like close down and shut down. And the blood transfusions weren't helping because they didn't have the technology to see what was wrong with me. And then I remember I started hallucinating, and it was like I said, get me out of here. I ended up getting airlifted to San Diego. And that at that point there were near-death experiences involved, and visions, and like a
Wow.
whole, yeah, yeah.
Did you
I've been
see?
reading I've been reading a lot about this phenomena called the near-death experience, and from there it was 20 days in ICU, and then another month in a rehab center, and then I was barely able to walk. I had all kinds of tubes in me. I wasn't able to walk. I wasn't, because of the tubes in my throat. Like we see on TV with the COVID. I had tubes in my throat. I wasn't able to speak. And then in the midst of all of this, the woman that I'd been seeing was like, I can't, I have to move on. I can't deal with somebody who's crippled like this. So that's what happened to that relationship.
Hmm.
That was a learning experience for me as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, and an experience, the most deep spiritual practice of forgiveness and
Hmm.
understanding, and
Like at
saying,
this point, did you already have your colostomy bag, or you're still
yes,
in the
yeah,
process?
yeah. I left the hospital. This is a colostomy bag, by the way.
Yeah.
So my intestines are sticking out of, to keep me alive, my intestines are sticking out of my belly, and the intestines are going into this bag, and I drain it from the bottom.
Right.
So, and barely, I'm crippled, not able to walk. Now I can walk. I can stand up, I can dance. In fact, one of the first things I did when I was healthy enough to walk is part of me was feeling sorry for myself and all of the things that I'll never be able to do. And like as soon as I was able to walk a block, I signed up for dance lessons, and I was like, I went dancing to, I went to the local ballroom dance. What, I don't remember the name of the place, but yeah, I said, whatever I can do, as soon as I learn how to walk, I can be on my feet. I'm not going to say that I can never dance again, and I'm not a good dancer, but but you know, at least I'm saying I'm not going to stop living my life because of what happened to me, because the option was for me to fall into a slump, feel sorry for myself, decide that there was nothing left,
Yeah.
and I wasn't going to let myself do that.
Mm. Yeah. So I remember you mentioning, like, for instance, that you even, like, then it's like dating with this, that sort of like brought things up, going to sex parties, all these things. So what was the experience then of like having to lift yourself back up and allow yourself to come into contact with other people after like in intimate relationships?
Well, I did manage to get involved, have intimate relationships and sexual relationships with this. And you know, there's a lot of things involved in this. This is like, has to be cleaned, it has to be changed. I have to have supplies. I have to, like, if I move around, it could open up and it can leak.
And it
And there's
actually comes out of your stomach. It's not from the back.
in my stomach, the intestines are sticking out. Like when I take it off, my intestines were sticking out of a hole.
Mhm.
So like you can see the intestine, and it goes into here, and that's where the waste goes through. And
Yeah.
then this thing, you drain it from the bottom, and you see through.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna make a decision that I'm not gonna let this stop me.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not gonna.
what does sex look like when you have your bag?
Well, first of all, it's the question you have on a first date is, how much do I want to reveal?
Yeah.
And at this point in my life, I've learned to go and be on the side of being truthful and vulnerable and not holding back, you know,
Mhm.
because like my metaphor is that we all have our shit on the inside, and we're hiding it. And it's like, I can't hide anymore. Like I can't hide my shit. This is
Right.
it. It's hanging from me. You're going
Yeah.
to see it. If you're going to be in a relationship, here it is. Can you deal with it? And it's like, so the first test is, are you going to judge me? Are you going to allow me? And so now I'm in the position of, what does it feel like to not feel safe? You
Mm.
know, if I'm going to be in a relationship, how safe do I feel in showing myself? And
Yeah.
you know, how much of this do I want to say?
I
And
love putting the emphasis on that, because that's what happens when you're getting to know someone, is you're always wondering, how much should I reveal to the person, how safe, and then the more you feel safe to reveal, the more you feel good in the relationship. But the less you feel safe, the more you feel suffocated, right?
yeah, and then I had to calibrate too. When I first started going, like I went on these apps and I just said, I'm just going to go out I'm going to just try to get 10 dates. And a lot of them crashed and burned. You know, first date, I told too much, you know,
Right.
dealing with, telling on a first date about near death experiences and breaking up and colostomy bag. It's like, oh, what the? So like they didn't all work out, I have to admit.
Yeah.
But I also learned, you know, like also, I think in a way, um, this is just like coming to me, but some of these things that I'm transmitting or I'm telling are not to just be given. Like they have to be, there has to be a space in the relationship for it to come out. And in a way, it's a gift, you know, like what I've learned by going through all of these things, I just can't that and
Yeah.
give it all away.
Right.
So
It has to be a timing and an openness and a container and a safe, like a sort of a space for it to be received.
yeah, and that includes, at what point do I like, for me when I'm dating, I want it to be sexual, and I want that to be part of why we're going out.
Yeah.
um, and I want that to be like upfront about it. You know, I deal with sexuality. I'm a sexuality coach. It's an important part of who I am. And like we can have dinner and all of that, but like at some point, is that a relationship that you want to pursue? And if it's a no, or I don't, or there's shame coming up or discomfort, then it's probably not a good fit. I need honesty on both sides. Like I need somebody to be able to take that in, listen, take a breath, and decide, yes, that's what I want. No, that's not what I want. And
Yeah.
again, I don't know how to date. So I don't know when you're supposed to bring. I don't know. I just say, I'm going to be upfront and straightforward. And and I think that's some of these lessons I've learned. I think that I wouldn't have done that without having gone through all of these things. I would have been worried about how am I supposed to show up? What am I supposed to say? What's polite?
Right.
What's appropriate? And
So it sounds as though you like really learned to claim your truth and to stand in it in a way that's also like taking in consideration where the other people are at and how much you've shared with each other at that point. Like sort of, it's like this kind of process of learning to own yourself and communicate it in a very direct way, but also being engaging of like what's that person capable of taking in that specific moment.
Exactly. And it's not like I'm gonna say, I want to sleep with you kind of thing. It's more like I have been on a 12-year journey in my marriage, and I'm studying sexuality, and I deal with shame and self-shame, and like I kind of bring it into, this is what I'm working on for myself, instead of this is what you have to provide for me, but this is who I am. This is what's important to me. And I'm letting you know up front, as opposed to this is what I want from you.
Yeah.
Because that's not going to work.
What are some of the reactions when you do talk about the colostomy bag? What have been some of the
well, I had to have special clothes. Like my whole life was this colostomy. I had to have supplies. I had to have deodorant stuff. So like I would be going out on a date, and it would be on my mind constantly. Like, can she see the bulge? Should I tell what this is? But if I don't, then I have this whole story about me being upfront and honest. So at what point do I reveal this part? And it's like having a gigantic weight. And that's and that's shame. But part of shame is like there's a place for shame. And I can't help it if someone is going to not be able to deal with this. It's a lot to deal with.
Can we just go back for a second? I really like that sentence. There is a place for shame. What do you mean by that?
I think that there is a place for shame in terms of, again, wow. The shame is how do we, there are certain things that it is appropriate to behave, and there is you're dealing with somebody else in their feelings, and you don't want to be like, I don't want to talk politics, but let's say you're running a country and you don't give a crap what you say or how you say it or who you offend or who you hurt, because there's the shame is a way of realizing that we are in relationship with another person and other people. Like, to be completely without shame is to kind of be narcissistic. It's like, I don't care about another person at all. I just care about, and so there's a difference between honest and straightforwardness, and also realizing when something you do or say could be inappropriate. It could be triggering, and I think that if you do something that hurts or triggers another person and somebody calls you on it, I think our natural reaction is shame. And that's a way for me to learn so I don't do it again. Like if I said something, which I have, which I hurt somebody, and they call me on it, I'm going to have an immediate physiological response of, oh man, I screwed up. And there's some pain in that. So now I've learned a lesson. I don't want to feel that. So let me not be such a dick next time.
Right. Like it sounds like developing perception and sensitivity to the other person.
Yes.
Not completely careless.
Right. And shame, I'm a parent too. We need it sometimes to make sure our children behave appropriately.
Right.
And the thing is, we have more than we need. Like we are so bombarded with shame on all different levels
Right.
that it shuts us down, and then we're afraid. So there's a point where you can have shame because you said the wrong thing, and then there's a point where people are shaming you for something that you didn't do that was wrong, and then you start internalizing it. And then especially, I mean, I went through trauma, so a lot of, and then a breakup, so there was all kinds of shame, and
Yeah.
I felt guilty and shame that I wasn't enough to make this relationship survive all of this. You know,
Yeah.
I had all kinds of shame and humiliation and feeling it's all my fault, even feeling shame that somehow I got sick. You know, I got sick because I wasn't taking care of myself, or, and, you know, like blaming, that's when shame becomes toxic,
Right.
because then it keeps me from, it's not motivating. It's the opposite. It keeps me from moving forward by, like, it's like a swamp, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're sitting in this swamp, and it's like feeling bad for yourself.
So let's go back to like those moments and tell me if ever there's anything you don't want to talk about. You're the one who gauges and tells me. But I'll just ask you and you can decide if you want to answer. But like, so we're back at that, moment where you're dating and you're like, you have your bag there and like, how much do I reveal? What have been some of the reactions and ways, that people have reacted when they've discovered?
Well, I mean, first of all, I have to get past the story. You know, like, okay, here, this is, I'm dating now, and this is why I'm dating, because I had this hospital experience and I had a breakup, and so here I am. And are you able to deal with me in the physical and psychological state that I'm in now? And a year later, I feel a lot stronger. But 3 or 4 months when I'm barely walking, that's the first barrier. The sex isn't going to happen. If, like a lot of women walked away right away. But
Around the colostomy bag or around
no, they didn't even know about the colostomy bag. Just from the story, just the story.
of like, going like having that breakup with your partner and going through the hospital system and having these operations and being in this situation.
Yeah,
right?
and trauma. I was dealing with trauma, and
Yeah.
I would get very like. There's one thing to be emotional and vulnerable. There's another thing where I would start to tell my story and I would break down and cry.
Right. Like really still feel like the rawness, and then the women that were there, they're like, I'm just on a first date. I can't deal with someone like that kind of thing.
And that's why I can talk about this now, but I did some interviews earlier when it was fresh. I could not get through the interview. It was, I mean, and then it got to the point where I was feeling, well, I'm talking too much about this experience, and and that was another shame. It's like, do I have anything else to talk about but my colostomy bag and my poop and my death? Like, don't I want to say something nice? Like, I started to feel shame that I went through this experience that was life-changing to me. Like,
Well, because it was such a big experience in your life, you couldn't, like, that was your experience. So it's hard not to talk from our experience, right?
Exactly. But then I also, again, this calibration, it's like, it is intense for people, and it is a lot for them to take in. And so then there was shame in me even talking about it. There's even shame in me talking about my near-death experience, because that's another whole level of intensity. Like, do people even want to believe something like that? So, how much of, there's still how much, that's why for me, this is liberating for me to just, I can talk to whoever's listening to this in a very honest way about some things that are real.
Yeah. That's really cool. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah. I mean, like even if you've gone through a bad experience, at what point is it imposing on people, because they don't want to hear about your breakup anymore? They don't want to hear about you lost your job, or they don't want to hear about you blah blah blah. It's like, are you like, that you have to have respect for their space too. So where is it where you want to be heard, but you don't want to, you also like have to feel into where the other person's at, because they might not have the capacity to hold all of that. And
Very cool. So you came to refine your way of relating to people. There was this, there was like all the psychological layers that you had to deal with from this impact and how big the experience had been on your life, the imprint on your life. And at the same time, you're a man that loves sex, and you're like, I gotta go beyond this. Like, I have to create something because, you know, like the experience I get when I hear you, you know, you did all these workshops, you know, you have a connection with sex and you like it, and you've had a sexless marriage, and there's all these motivating factors like to get you beyond this. So how did you get beyond this?
I think it was that. It was like seeing a hole where I was in. You know, I'd lost a lot financially too. I mean, I'm still paying off. I don't even want to get into that, but I had to pay for the emergency airlifts and stuff. So I'm in huge debt. I wasn't able to go back to work. I was on disability, which was half pay. So, you know, broke up, not able to walk. And it was a hole. I was like in a gigantic hole. And all I could see was like these rungs of the ladder. I said, okay, I'm gonna take a dance class. Boom. I'm gonna go dating.
Right.
That's like another, like, let me prove to myself that I can pull myself out of this by showing myself, by doing, that I can pull myself out of this. Like, you know, like what, like, so each one would be
every part of every rung that you climb up, you're like, oh, I managed to do this. Oh, I managed to do this.
Yeah. And then not to let, okay, I go on a date and, oh, it didn't work out. Boom, not to go back down, but say, no, I went on a date. You know, I went out there, I did it, and not let that pull me back to, so I went back down the rung again, and just like keep seeing it as a way to pull myself out.
How did these, like, let's say being a coach with the Evolved Masculine, how does that support you in your continuous progression?
Originally, because when I was first coaching for Destin, it was like I was in this relationship and I was able to feel so, you know, proud of myself. I'm in this great relationship, all this great sex, and look at me, and look when I'm coaching these guys, look at me and I'm realizing, so was I validating myself by being in these relationships? So now it's like I'm on my own with my story, and I could tell myself, because of my breakup, I'm not qualified to be a coach, which I did at some point. And now I feel the opposite. I feel like, no, you know, I've been through it. I understand when a man is telling me about whatever they've been through. I understand what people are going through in a way I didn't know before. And it's almost like entitlement was taken away. You know, any kind of entitlement I had was like, I understood what it's like to not have money. I understood in a new way. And one of the, if I am going to talk about the near-death experience, whether it was a download or not, it's kind of like my message, and it's about empathy and compassion. And like I started writing a speech about it. So like I really have a new capacity to, I don't know if the new capacity or something I've always had, but like to really try to understand where that person's coming from instead of coming from where I am and putting my perspective on it, but like really trying to feel in what is that person saying, what's underneath what they're saying, what's the emotions underneath what they're saying, like how do I put myself in that person's place as much as I can.
So, okay, so that there's that real development of like hearing what the other person's experiencing. Even though like maybe right now you're not in that, like, you know, fulfilling relationship, but you know that there is all this knowledge that you've accumulated.
Yeah, and I am actually seeing a woman. It's just like at this point I'm kind of shell shocked, so I'm not going to jump into anything too intense right now. So like I am seeing women and going out on dates and stuff, but I'm not like I'm not going to get too. That makes sense, right? What I'm saying. So
yeah, like it's still delicate and sensitive, and like it's like you want to respect that process that you're going in. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, and I also just need to discover what it is that what's this new relationship going to be like? You know, like what is it going to bring to me? Because the last ones brought me something. There was something I learned from them. So what's next? Hopefully, you know, each one is at a higher level than the one before it.
So what do you feel are your biggest successes since this traumatic experience? Like what are the biggest successes that you've achieved?
um, being where I was at, not being able to walk, pooping in a bag and urinating in a bag. I had a catheter and I had a bag of urine like strapped to my foot, to where I'm at now. Like a year later, it's almost exactly a year later, to have gone through all of that and to be here speaking Facebook Live, telling my story, and hopefully now I'm feeling emotion. So give me a second.
Aw.
Like being able to tell my story. Like I think there's power. I might be full of crap, but I think that somehow just telling this story of going from where I was at to where I'm in now is a success.
Yeah. Well, it's a very powerful thing to be able to put in words, like our experiences, especially when they're really difficult experiences, and then having other people witness us in that experience, right?
Right. And again, it's not about, I don't want it to be about feeling sorry for what I went through. I want it to be about overcoming it all. And being a coach and coaching other men and even being able to speak, even though I'm not in a relationship now, doesn't mean that I don't have the skills to show up in a relationship that I didn't have before, and to show tell other men how to show up in relationships. And
Yeah. Well, it sounds as though you really went through a deepening experience through the pain and the suffering that you had to go through and the courage that you had to like show yourself to overcome this. Like it just feels like it really deepened your human experience. And that's something you bring now to your coaching and your support and the message that you can have about what it is to be human, and, what it is to be, lose certain faculties, but then still want to recover your humanity. And that involves sexuality, that involves all kinds of different things. It's human connection.
yes, and claim it all. Don't hide your shit. Like just like let it by having to literally not be able to hide my shit made me learn to not try to hide it anymore,
Right.
because I think too many of us are holding it. You can't see it, but you could feel it. You can feel what people are with. Not
So like, yeah, when you don't hide your shit anymore, like how does that impact the relationships, that even if it's not a serious relationship, how does it impact the different people that you meet? And does it allow people to connect to you differently?
when you're hiding it.
No, when you're not hiding it anymore.
I think so, because I think that it's so much less work for me. Now I don't have to work about what am I saying the right thing? Am I getting their approval? Am I validating? Am I performing? Now
Wow.
it's like
I totally get it. Like it actually like simplifies your life.
oh,
'Cause you're,
it made me free. And it's interesting because that photo that you put on the Facebook is of this tattoo, which is the ego. This was something I got when I did a ceremony in Peru, and the mask is the ego, and the fire is the mask that we all wear, burning away in the fire. So it's like I got it to represent those other states where there is no ego, and I honestly feel that that was left behind. Like that mask of of trying to show up a certain way for other people.
mm,
I got to leave that behind in my death, in my
wow.
little death. Yeah.
Hmm. That's a really powerful experience. So there's a kind of new transparency with
Well,
yourself.
we live in fear. So what's our biggest fear is death. And I faced it. I flatlined more than once. I was basically my organs, my brain with my oxygen. So I went to another place, and he had there was like points of decision where I made the decision to stay alive. So that at this point, it was like, it wasn't completely a conscious decision, but it was like, I fought to be here. So I'm not going to so from now on, I fought to live here. So I am going to make every moment count. I'm not going to be in a funk over masks or not masks, or this or that or Democrats or Republicans. It's like, it's important, but it's also important for me to show up for myself. You know, I fought to be here. I survived, and I am not afraid. You know, that's so liberating.
So what does life look like when you're not afraid anymore? Because you sort of face the potential death, and you're like, now you have life.
Okay, well,
What?
let's go to. Well, I think we want to talk about the play party, right, with the colostomy bag, like. Okay, so I know this is. I want you, you know, like go into the place of I am going to take my clothes off in a room full of strangers with a colostomy bag. What do I need to prepare for this? Like, what do I need to prepare emotionally for this, in order to do this? So I remember I actually went to a somatic healer who does body work, and that's something I believe in. In fact, I'll say her name, Clarity. Thank you. She did, you know, somatic work, which is a whole other thing. But finding all the emotions in my body, you know, I'm going to step into a room of people that I don't know and take my clothes off in front of all of them, and they're all going to see this. But I decorate. So these are. I want to show you these because a friend made these. So the first there that way they, you know, it's not as confront, there's not as much confrontation.
I like the dragon one.
Yeah. So the first day it was like I was kind of like a turtle because it was a 3-day party. So the first day it was like I was still shy, and I was still coming from a place of who are these people and who's judging me? You know, like I could see, like I think trauma gives you a sense of reading people for safety reasons. Like for whatever your body can see who is judging you. Like I don't know if that's in my head or not, but it was almost like who's looking at me and thinking, what is this guy doing here? You know, that's disgusting. Or
Yeah.
or and
Right.
and another person who's saying, wow, that guy is really being brave
Yeah.
here. And
Absolutely.
I remember like I was able to almost get a sense of everybody in the room and who was on my side and not on my side, but like I could feel the judgment.
Have your
What's
back.
that?
Who had your back? Who
Yeah,
did?
and then I like there were two women that I could like kind of feel that they were accepting me. But at
Right.
the first day, I was still in my shame, you know, I was still like
Yeah.
shy. But the second day, I did participate in the party, and with those two girls, because I felt that they actually respected and admired not my physical self, but the fact that I was able to show myself in that way, which is why being vulnerable is sexy. I'm going to say, you know, like having the courage, because you know, first of all, I was probably the oldest guy there, and there was all these buff good, you know, there was all these reasons for me not for me to beat myself up and feel shame and
You're
feel
like
like
super courageous. Like you showed up at a sex party with these big Adonises, and you're like, "Here, I'm going to do this anyways."
yeah.
Love it.
And that was a huge breakthrough for me to say that even that I could be normal, you
Yeah.
know, like I could have a normal life um, with this. So
So just could you, I don't know if it's possible, like if those, so 3 days, there's you take off your clothes, they see this bag, and then is there exercises and stuff or different things that happen or?
yeah, there's exercises to warm up and get to know people, and that's really when I was getting like a sense where people would be like, they would try to hide it, but you could see facial expressions of like, well, that's weird. You know, this is really weird looking. And who does this guy, almost like, who does this guy think he is to bring this into our space, this disgusting thing, you know, like I could feel that energy. I could also feel the energy of like pity. I could
Yeah.
feel the energy of, and then I could feel the energy of compassion of like, wow, what would, if I were that, would I take my clothes off in a, I mean, first of all, it's hard enough to do that. We all
Yeah.
have all kinds of reasons not to do that.
Yeah.
You know, we're too fat, we're too skinny, we're too old, we're too young.
Yeah. Was there a kinky energy? Like someone like, hey, this is a turn on?
Uh, I don't, I think that would be a particular kind of kink that would, I think the turn on was more of like, yeah, showing, I don't know. Yeah, it could be kinky, you know, like the kinkiness of being so so without shame, since kinky is about taboo. And I think there is something taboo about showing up. I mean, certainly not what's considered appropriate. So there is a kinkiness in a taboo to showing up at a party like this.
Mhm.
With,
And what was your takeaway at the end of this weekend? Like, how did you feel at the end?
well, as I said, I started out as the turtle and I became the dragon. So I just felt that there's hope,
Okay.
like there's hope that there's that it's a matter of believing that I have a right to exist and take up space, and
Mhm.
not believing stories that I don't belong, or that there's something wrong with me, or that I'm disabled, or there's like that there is a multitude of people, and I am going to accept myself, and I'm not going to let your judgment stop me,
Yeah.
because that's not fair. I've
Yeah.
been through too much. It's
Yeah.
like I've been through too much for someone's judgment to take away my right.
That's powerful. That's really powerful.
And it's also making
It's
me
almost like you're yeah, it's like I've got nothing to lose now. Like this is something I want to experience, and those little petty things, I'm not gonna let them affect me anymore.
yeah, I'm not going to let someone else's judgment take away my freedom to have a voice, exist, and be a being with, like somebody with desires to be physical.
Mhm.
If I'm going to let some the harsh judgments of others, then I'm gonna not go anywhere. I'm gonna be in that hole,
Yeah.
and I wasn't gonna stay there.
Yeah. So were you sexually fulfilled by the end of the weekend?
Well, yeah, it was great, because and how I took a chance,
Yeah.
and how what a way for me to help me have the tools to love myself in the future.
Yeah.
It could have been a disaster. I could have been the turtle all night long sitting and nobody wanted to even talk to me. That was a possibility that I had to face.
Yeah.
And then would I go back down that ladder, or would I say, okay,
Yeah.
that particular experience didn't work out for me, but I took a chance, and it helped me um, feel that things are possible if I'm willing to let myself take the risks that I need to take and not be afraid.
Hmm. Wow. So just as we're gonna sort of come to a close soon
Yeah,
with our.
because I actually have a call at 6, so I was looking at the time.
Yeah.
And
But I still have a burning question. In terms of the bag, does it make it more difficult to have sex?
yes,
Yeah.
and there's and because it can move,
Right.
it can open up, it can leak. So the partner who I was able to have a sexual relationship, I still see her. I am grateful to her,
Yeah.
because she showed me the power of acceptance.
Mm.
When she showed me that I can be accepted with this, she will accept me with this.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't have it anymore. That's another story. I actually got this. I don't have the colostomy anymore. It got removed, and that's a whole other story. I went on like a superfoods organic foods fast, and they were able to hospitalize me during the virus and remove it. So, but I did have to face the
That means like
possibility.
taking out the bag?
I don't have the bag anymore.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But she was with me when I had it, and
Right.
then she was with me when I didn't have it.
Right.
So like the fact that she was willing to be with me when I had it, and if I still had it, but it was
Really meaningful situation.
it was important symbolically to say that there are people that will accept us as we are,
Mm-hmm. Mm.
but we have to be willing to we have to be willing to do the hard work of being rejected and not being accepted, and but but there are people that will accept us even with a bag of shit hanging from our bodies, and not everyone will, and I have to be okay with that too.
Right. Sounds like you've come to a real place of acceptance.
I have to. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, what would be the other opportunity? The other option would be for me to be a victim, for me to feel sorry for myself, for me to say I can't do it, to me for me to live in fear. And I went through I went through too much.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
at this point, I want to reward myself. I don't want to punish myself with shame.
Well, it goes to show how much, like, when we actually choose something, how much we create our reality, right? That's
Yes.
what I'm hearing from you.
Yes. All right. Well, what time is it? Because I do have that
Yeah.
other call coming up.
Yes. Tell me.
This is great. It went fast. I didn't even think I would have enough to say, and it's like the hour
Yeah.
flew by.
Well,
So
I just have to give you an opportunity to say final words. What would you like to say to finish
well, I
off?
mean, one of the things I'm promoting is this nutrition product because it helped me get a colostomy removed and like other things that were going on in my body. So it's superfoods, organic stuff. I'm going to put a link on the comments for that if you're interested in it. Also, if you want, I also would love anyone who's been through a near-death experience to contact me because I'm writing a book about it and I want to hear other people's experiences. So if anyone's listening to it and says, I might have had one, I want you to contact me so they can go to the Facebook and message me and say I had a near-death experience. And, whatever, if you want to work with me as a coach also, I don't really have a website right now. So I guess the easiest thing to be, I should be more professional about this, but just message me. And,
Like, what could they get help with?
well, I mean, first of all, if they're interested in the nutritional aspect of like cleaning up their health, because I was in bad shape. I wouldn't have been able to get the colostomy removed if I didn't like clean up all of my blood. And so, like I'm a nutrition health consult on that. Also relationship stuff. If you feel I'm the right, if you're dealing with maybe a sexless marriage and contact me. The blueprints, somatic work, and
Okay, cool.
yeah.
Well,
So just like, and also yeah, and again, if you had a near-death experience, because I'm gathering information from my book. So
yeah,
if you just reach out to me, and
yeah.
so I wish I had a more professional pitch because I know I'm supposed to, but I just don't. I just click
Well,
on my name on Facebook and message.
you get a chance to practice it out here.
Yeah.
But yeah, well,
Also, I'm single too, so I don't know if this is better than those dating sites. So like, you know who I am. So
yeah.
I'm
Well,
auditioning
thank
for
you,
that too.
Larry, for like really sharing your story and all the ups and downs and the intense parts and the courage and leaning into like even, things that might have not been the conventional ways of doing things and, just giving yourself permission, like that sex party at the end was you really giving yourself permission to have an experience. And so thank you for sharing that all openly.
And what would you say is the biggest? Because this is how I always end my session. What's the biggest takeaway? What did you learn from this? Like, what would you say? That
Well, what did I learn? This is a great question. I really saw um, that whole experience. Well, I really love that part about how you hold two pieces, two points of view at the same time, and how like that's enlightenment to be able to bring those two pieces together. And I also got like I really appreciated how you talked about I've experienced so many hard things. Like I'm not going to let little things that maybe in the past would have stop me now. And it just really shows like the force of character that you really develop through these hardships and how there's certain things that would have maybe been important in the past or they're looking good, but you kind of like no, like you're kind of really now connected to these visceral strong things that you value and you're willing to like give yourself permission. And I just think that's really a powerful example.
Thank you. Thank you for the takeaway, and thank you for having me on the show. And I reach out and comment with your takeaways. Like if you're listening to this, put in the comments what your takeaway was. So
That's a great idea. I love that. Your
all
takeaway,
right,
Larry Davidson.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you
Bye
for
bye.
everyone that showed up on the CoCreativeSex Dialogues, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next week. It will be a surprise. I will post in my Facebook and my Instagram what the next one coming up is. I have to kind of secret is actually I have to like look at what it is. But
right. I'm sorry.
yeah.
You know what? So thank
Yeah.
you.
Goodbye. Thanks a lot for everyone. Talk to you soon. See you soon, everyone.